Tonight, we're going to travel back in time to explore the quiet and uneventful history of a familiar tool, the wrench. Before we deep dive into the history, my name is Boris, and I'd love to know, where are you listening from, and what was the best part of your day? Feel free to share it in the comments below. Now, settle in. Let's drift gently into the past. It starts not with a clang of steel, but with a quiet thought, a simple principle that has governed our world since its inception, the idea of leverage. Long before the first wrench was ever imagined, humanity understood that a long handle could multiply a person's strength. A simple lever could move a great stone. A long oar could propel a heavy boat through the water. This is where the story of the wrench has its quiet, unassuming roots. It is a story of turning things, of tightening and of loosening, a gentle back and forth rhythm that we will follow through the centuries. Our story does not start in a noisy factory or a modern workshop. Instead, let's imagine the distant past. The earliest clear signs of a wrench-like tool appear around the 15th century. Here, the needs were simple and direct. Coopers, the craftsmen who made barrels, needed a way to pull their wooden staves together, to tighten the iron hoops that held them fast. Armorers needed a way to tighten the bolts on a suit of plate armor. They used basic, sturdy levers, perhaps nothing more than a shaped piece of wood or iron, to apply pressure and create a tight fit. These weren't wrenches in the way we think of them. They were just simple tools for a simple task, the first faint whispers of an idea. For centuries, this was enough. Great civilizations rose and fell, all without the need for a dedicated tool to turn a common nut. Their tools were often custom-made for a single purpose, a square key for a square hole, a large bar to turn a capstan. The idea of a universal turning tool wasn't yet necessary. The world just wasn't standardized. Think of a medieval blacksmith, his forge glowing in the dim light of his workshop. If a knight needed a bolt for his armor, the blacksmith would forge that bolt by hand. Then, he would forge a tool specifically to turn that one bolt. The tool and the fastener were a pair, born together in the fire, and meant only for each other. If the tool was lost, a new one would have to be made. There was no concept of walking into a shop and buying a replacement. This was a time of bespoke creation, a slow and deliberate world where every object had its own story and a unique fit. Machines of this era, like the magnificent printing presses of the 15th century, also followed this principle. The large screws that provided their immense pressure were turned not by a separate wrench, but by long built-in levers or large spoked wheels that were a permanent part of the machine itself. The tool was integrated, inseparable from the device it served. And so, for hundreds of years, the wrench lay dormant, an idea waiting for its time, waiting for a problem that it alone could solve. As the quiet centuries drifted by, the world began to change. The gentle, rhythmic work of the farm and the artisan's shop started to give way to a new sound, the steady, pulsing beat of machines. This was the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, a time that would change everything, and in its own quiet way, create the need that would finally give birth to the modern wrench. Picture the landscape of the 18th century. Factories, powered by water and steam, began to appear, their chimneys reaching for the sky. Inside, a complex web of gears, pistons, and belts worked in concert. For the first time, goods weren't being made one by a single pair of hands, but in great quantities, by machines that never tired. With this mass production of goods came the mass production of parts. Nuts, bolts, and screws were no longer the unique creations of a local blacksmith. They were now being produced in their thousands, becoming the very fabric of this new mechanical world. But a problem soon emerged. A quiet, persistent issue that slowed down this new age. While the nuts and bolts were mass-produced, they weren't yet standardized. A bolt from one factory might be a slightly different size from a bolt from another. Even within the same factory, variations were common. This created a constant low-level frustration for the mechanics and engineers tasked with keeping the machines running. Their toolkits were heavy and clumsy, filled with a multitude of fixed wrenches, each designed for a specific and often slightly different sized nut. It was an inefficient way to work. The dream of a single tool that could adapt to different sizes was no longer a mere convenience. It was becoming a pressing need. It was in this environment that the direct ancestor of the wrench we know today began to take shape. The first notable developments came from England, the heart of this industrial change. In the late 1700s, craftsmen began producing what were known as coach wrenches. These were heavy, adjustable tools designed for the large, often irregularly sized nuts on the wheels of horse-drawn carriages. As these carriages rumbled over cobbled streets, their wheels would often work loose, and a driver needed a reliable tool to make repairs. The coach wrench, with its sliding jaw, offered a practical solution. These sturdy English tools were exported to North America, where they found a ready market in a land of long distances and rugged travel. They were the first small step towards a universal solution, a hint of the elegant simplicity that was to come. They were still cumbersome, but they held within them the seed of a revolutionary idea, one wrench to turn them all. The stage was now set. The problem was clear. The first attempts had been made, and across the ocean, an inventor was about to take the next decisive step. The year is 1835. The world is still finding its footing in the new industrial age. In Springfield, Massachusetts, a man named Solomon Merrick was thinking about the problem of the mismatched nut and tool. Merrick, an inventor with a practical mind, looked at the existing English coach wrenches and saw room for improvement. He saw a way to make the adjustment mechanism more precise and easier to use. On August 17, 1835, Solomon Merrick was granted a patent for the first screw-adjustable wrench in the United States. His design was beautifully simple. It featured a long bar that formed the handle and the stationary upper jaw. A second movable jaw could slide up and down this bar. The key to his invention was the mechanism that controlled this movement, a simple rotating screw. By turning this circular nut, a mechanic could move the lower jaw with precision, closing it to grip a small nut, or opening it to fit a larger one. Let's just pause to consider the quiet elegance of this design. There was no more hammering on wedges, no more struggling with clumsy tools. With a simple turn of the thumb and forefinger, a user could adjust the wrench to fit the task at hand. One tool could now replace a whole collection of heavy, fixed-size wrenches. Merrick's invention was a direct response to the needs of the time, a tool born of the factory floor. It was a symbol of a new way of thinking, one that valued efficiency and adaptability. The patent document itself is a testament to this ingenuity, with its clear drawings of this improvement in screw wrenches. The design was so fundamental and so effective that its core principle, a sliding jaw adjusted by a screw, remains the basis for the common adjustable wrench found in nearly every toolbox today. Merrick's wrench, and the many variations that quickly followed, began to spread. They weren't exciting, but they were deeply, fundamentally useful. They were the quiet enablers of progress, the tools that allowed mechanics to build and repair the increasingly complex machinery of the 19th century. From the sprawling textile mills of New England to the workshops building the first steam locomotives, this new type of adjustable wrench was there, doing its job with quiet reliability. Solomon Merrick didn't just invent a tool, he provided a key that would unlock a new level of mechanical efficiency. His patent marks the true beginning of our story, the moment the wrench as we know it stepped out of the shadows and into the light of the modern world. With Solomon Merrick's patent, the door was open for innovation. The 19th century became a fertile ground for inventors to refine and adapt the adjustable wrench, creating specialized tools for specific tasks. First came the venerable monkey wrench. Its origin is a bit clouded in workshop folklore. One popular story, now considered a myth by most historians, attributes it to a Baltimore mechanic named Charles Monkey, suggesting the name is a deliberate misspelling of his own. While Monkey did patent a wrench in 1858, the name likely has other roots. Whatever its naming story, the monkey wrench became an icon of industry. With its straight handle and smooth jaws, it was a heavy, robust tool, a mainstay for anyone dealing with the large, often square-headed nuts and bolts of the era. It was the kind of tool you'd find with a steam locomotive engineer or a factory maintenance man, a symbol of heavy-duty strength. As the century moved on, another challenge appeared. The expanding network of steam, gas, and water lines in growing cities needed a tool that could grip a round pipe without slipping. A standard smooth-jawed wrench just wasn't up to the task. The solution came from a man who knew the problem firsthand. Daniel C. Stillson was a steamboat fireman and later a mechanic at the Woolworth Company in Massachusetts. Working with complex piping systems, he knew the frustration of trying to get a secure grip on a smooth, round surface. In 1869, Stillson whittled a model of a new kind of wrench from wood and presented it to his employers. His design was ingenious. It featured two serrated jaws. The top jaw was designed to rock slightly in the frame. This meant that as you pushed on the handle, the jaws would pivot and bite deeper into the pipe. The harder you pushed, the tighter it held. The owner of the company, skeptical but intrigued, famously challenged Stillson to build a steel prototype and to either twist off the pipe or break the wrench. Stillson's prototype twisted the pipe and the wrench remained intact. Patented in 1869, the Stillson pipe wrench, as it became known, was a revolution in plumbing. It allowed a single worker to securely assemble and disassemble threaded pipes. Daniel Stillson's invention earned him significant royalties and secured his place in the history of tools, a perfect example of a problem being solved by someone with direct, hands-on experience. Alongside these innovations, other specialized designs appeared. One of the most distinctive was the alligator wrench. Popular in the late 1800s, this wrench had a fixed V-shaped head with serrated teeth on one side, looking a bit like the open mouth of an alligator. It wasn't adjustable in the traditional sense. Instead, it gripped pipes and rods by wedging them into the V. As the handle was turned, the teeth would bite into the metal. It was a simple, rugged tool, perfectly suited for the rough work of maintaining locomotives and farm machinery. This period was a quiet explosion of creativity. The single idea of an adjustable wrench had fractured into a dozen different forms, each one honed for a specific purpose. The toolbox of the late 19th century mechanic was beginning to look much more familiar, filled not with one wrench, but with a family of wrenches, each with its own name and its own quiet story. As the 19th century gave way to the 20th, a new machine arrived that would once again transform the world: the automobile. The rise of the car industry was built on the assembly line and mass-produced, interchangeable parts. This created a demand for tools that were not just strong, but also precise, efficient, and versatile. The heavy wrenches of the 19th century weren't always a good fit for the tighter spaces of an automobile engine. The first major evolution was in how wrenches were made. The older cast-iron wrenches were strong, but brittle. The early 1900s saw the widespread adoption of forged wrenches. By drop forging steel, manufacturers could create tools that were significantly stronger, lighter, and more durable, with a sleek form much closer to the wrenches we use today. A significant breakthrough was popularized in the 1920s and 30s with the box-end wrench. Until then, most wrenches were open-ended, gripping a nut on only two sides. This worked, but could sometimes slip and round off the corners of the nut. The box-end wrench solved this beautifully. It featured a closed ring with internal notches, typically 6 or 12 points, that completely surrounded the fastener. This spread the turning force evenly across all the flat sides of the nut, dramatically reducing the chance of slippage and damage. Building on this, the 1930s saw the arrival of what is perhaps the most common wrench in any modern toolbox: the combination wrench. The idea was simple. Why carry two separate wrenches when you could have both designs on a single tool? The combination wrench featured an open end on one side and a box end of the same size on the other. This gave mechanics the best of both worlds: the easy speed of the open end and the secure grip of the box end. It was a masterpiece of practicality. Yet, perhaps the most important wrench innovation for the modern mechanic was the ratcheting wrench, or ratchet. While the core idea had been developing for some time, a patent granted to Robert Owen of Shawnee, Ohio on September 9, 1913, truly set the stage for the modern tool. His double-acting wrench was designed to solve a fundamental problem: turning a bolt in a tight space where you can't rotate the handle a full 360 degrees. The ratchet's mechanism is a quiet marvel. Inside its head, a gear wheel is engaged by a small spring-loaded piece called a pawle. When you move the handle in one direction, the pawle locks into the gear, turning the socket and the fastener. When you move the handle back the other way, the pawle simply clicks over the teeth of the gear, letting the handle return to its starting position without moving the socket. This allows you to tighten or loosen a bolt with a continuous back and forth motion. A common modern 72-tooth ratchet can work with as little as 5 degrees of movement, a level of precision that mechanics of the early 20th century could only have dreamed of. The automobile drove the wrench to become faster, stronger, and more specialized than ever before. Each new design was a quiet response to a new challenge, a slow and steady evolution that mirrored the increasing complexity of the machines it was built to serve. As we drift closer to the present day, the story of the wrench becomes one of incredible diversity. The foundational designs of the past have been polished and perfected, joined by a vast array of specialized tools. The modern toolbox is a testament to over a century of quiet, incremental innovation. The classic adjustable wrench, a direct descendant of Solomon Merrick's design, is still a staple. In the United States, it's often called a Crescent wrench, a name that became generic because the Crescent tool company made a version so popular it became a household name. It remains the go-to tool for its sheer versatility. The modern era also saw the rise of fasteners that didn't have traditional external heads. This required a new kind of tool, an internal wrench. The most famous of these is the Allen wrench, also known as a hex key. Designed for bolts with a hexagonal recess in their head, the simple L-shaped piece of steel is a marvel of minimalist design. It's lightweight, cheap to make, and allows you to turn fasteners in deep, hard-to-reach places. From assembling flat-pack furniture to fine-tuning bicycles, the Allen wrench has become an indispensable part of modern life. As machines became more sophisticated, particularly in the automotive and aerospace industries, the need for precision reached a new level. It was no longer enough to simply make a bolt tight. Critical components required fasteners to be tightened to a very specific amount of force, or torque. This need gave rise to the torque wrench. A torque wrench is a tool of precision. It can be set to a specific torque value, and when the user tightens a bolt, the wrench will indicate, often with an audible click or a reading on a dial, when that precise amount of force has been applied. It removes the guesswork from critical tasks, ensuring that every bolt is just right. It represents the pinnacle of the wrench's evolution from a simple lever into a sophisticated measuring instrument. The materials used to make these tools have also continued to evolve. While forged steel remains the standard, high-quality wrenches are typically made from advanced alloys. Chrome vanadium steel is a common choice, prized for its strength and resistance to wear. This is often finished with chrome plating, which not only gives the wrench its bright, shiny appearance, but also provides a hard surface that resists corrosion and makes the tool easy to wipe clean. From a simple iron lever in the 15th century to a precision-calibrated torque wrench made of advanced alloys, the journey has been long and quiet. Each step has been a response to a need, a solution to a problem. The modern toolbox, with its dazzling array of shapes and sizes, is a library of these solutions, a quiet history of human ingenuity written in steel. If these quiet journeys through history help you find rest and you feel yourself beginning to drift, you might consider subscribing so we can continue to explore these peaceful topics together. There is no need to do anything now, just a gentle thought to hold as you relax. And so, our gentle story of the wrench comes to a close. We have drifted from the distant past, where the simple concept of leverage was first understood, through the quiet centuries of craftsmanship where every tool was unique. We witnessed the spark of the Industrial Revolution, the sound of new machines that created a need for a universal, adaptable tool. We met Solomon Merrick, whose simple and elegant patent in 1835 gave us the adjustable wrench we still recognize today. We saw his idea branch out, evolving into the heavy-duty monkey wrench, and Daniel Stillson's ingenious pipe wrench, born from the practical needs of a steamboat fireman. The journey continued into the 20th century, driven by the automobile, giving us the secure grip of the box end, the versatility of the combination wrench, and the tireless efficiency of the ratchet with its gentle rhythmic click. And finally, we arrived in the modern day, with its specialized Allen keys and precision torque wrenches, tools crafted to meet the demands of our complex world. The history of the wrench is not a dramatic one. It's a slow, methodical, and uneventful tale. It is the story of a simple tool, quietly adapting and evolving, always there when needed, to turn, to tighten, to build, and to repair. A story that is now, hopefully, gently fading into the background. There is nothing more to learn, nothing more to follow. The journey is complete. And now, it's time to rest. Allow your mind to be still. Let the last of your thoughts drift away. Sleep well.